My name is Simon Gnehm. I'm the owner of Hearthwood Pellets, and welcome to our plant here in Curryville, Missouri, where we manufacture wood pellets out of sawdust and wood chips. We will show you how we're doing that and what it would mean for you as a consumer. We manufacture wood pellets out of locally available resources for the local market here in Missouri and the surrounding states. We are a family-owned business that has spent the last 3 years perfecting the process of making a consistent and a reliable product that you can count on to heat your home. We have a good, solid base for raw material. We'd like to show that to you today to see what it takes to turn waste material, essentially, into locally produced, renewable energy source. We are going to go check out the raw material source and how far it needs to travel to reach our plant. This is the storage facility for the sawdust from the sawmill. The sawmill provides us with a perfect source of raw material, some of it in shape of sawdust. We pick it up with our front end loaders and travel the 50 yards to our facility. That's how far the raw material travels to become our pellets. The other part of our raw material resource is right next to me. Those are the wood chips made out of all the offcuts that the sawmill cannot turn into useful lumber. These chips are of extremely high quality, for one, because the trees got debarked before they get cut up into lumber. That means that any kind of dirt and sand trapped in the bark does not become a pellet and ultimately contribute to a higher ash content. So this is very clean raw material. Both the sawdust and the chips help us make a perfect pellet. So what we're looking at here is the primary machine to turn the chips into something smaller that can be dried. Chips are inconsistent in size. Sometimes you find long strands, and they would block our transitions. They would block our shoots. So we turn them into something smaller, essentially, not quite a sawdust, but definitely something that's easier to convey. In the background, you see where the sawdust goes. That's already small enough. That does not need to be pulverized to be dried. And they meet up, the chips and the sawdust, and they travel through a rotary drum dryer. That heat and air will remove the moisture, and it comes out at a moisture content that we can process into wood pellets. We talked about contaminants earlier with debarking the trees to get the bark off and lower the ash content of the raw material. Well, another contaminant that comes over to us from the sawmill are metal particles. That is strictly accidental, that's not on purpose, but we definitely have to try to get those things out because our process, our wood pellet mill, does not like the metal too much. So we have a metal trap, that's a magnet, traps all the metal particles traveling through before it get dried, and it ranges from small little grindings all the way to nails, bolts, and saw teeth. This makes sure that we keep our machinery running properly, running well, and make sure that steel and metal doesn't end up in a pellet. Once our sawdust has traveled through the rotary drum dryer, reached consistent moisture content of 8 to 12%, we store it in our bin. Holds about 6 to 10 tons. Jury's still out on that. It depends how tightly we pack it. And that gives us some surge capacity to pelletize quicker or to dry faster. It really is in our great advantage to make sure that we can turn the pellet mill on and keep it on all day long. It is conveyed pneumatically. That way we make sure we get all the product in the bin and it doesn't just kick up into the air. We have a giant conveyor belt down below that discharges the bin and brings the material back into the building where the pelletizing process will essentially begin. So here we are. That big conveyor belt drops the raw material into a metering auger, and that metering auger essentially brings the sawdust to our pellet mill. Once the material drops into the pellet mill, it has a mixer and a conditioner in case you need to add steam, water, or molasses, depending on the pelleting product that you are manufacturing. In our case, we have none of that. We have pure wood and only wood. We may trickle a little bit of water into it in case we over dry our product. The pelleting die has approximately 2,200 holes. They have a diameter of 1/4 inch. The sawdust is being squeezed through those holes and then cut off, and they drop onto a conveyor belt where they need to be cooled, because as they are being squeezed through the die, the friction generates a lot of heat. They reach a temperature of approximately 170 to 190 degrees. This is the heart and soul of the whole production. If it doesn't like what we're doing in the drying process, then we will turn bad pellet. We will have too much dust, or we will have exploding pellets with a moisture content that's too high, so that inside pretty much the steam generated makes the pellet break apart. But we see that right away as they come out of the pellet mill, so we have an open transition so we can react accordingly. As I mentioned before, the pellets reach temperatures of in excess of 190 degrees at times, and that means we need to cool them down. Our cooler is a slow-moving conveyor belt that has a fan attached to it that draws air through it, thus cooling the pellets down. When the pellets exit the cooler, they're about ambient temperature to 20 degrees above, depending on the climate and the weather of that particular day. What we're looking at here is the screener. The cooler discharges the pellets into the screener that has a mesh with about 3/16 of an opening, and it shakes the pellets in there. And as those pellets would not be hard enough, they would crumble and the fines would drop below, and we weed them out so that only the hard, finished, perfect pellets make their way through the screener. If we have a pellet that's too wet and ultimately kind of blows up, that will just disintegrate in here and turn back to sawdust and come back out on the bottom. A hard pellet will just make its way through and gets dropped into conveyor, and that conveyor takes it up into our bagging bin. The two people bagging and stacking control every single bag and would be the last visual inspection to make sure that every pellet in the bag is a pellet that's worth being called a Hearthwood pellet. The bagger checks for weight about every 5th or 10th bag, and the stacker makes sure that the bag does feel just the way it's supposed to feel, with nice and hard pellets inside of the bag. Once we're done bagging and stacking the pellets, we put a hoodie over them to protect them from rain during transport. That's not meant as a permanent protection. That's just for a very short period of time. We keep them in our shop, stack them. We have a capacity for about 1,000 to 1,200 tons to store inside, so we're always ready to deliver multiple trucks at a time, and they're stored in a weather protected environment. Make sure and ensure the quality that we put in the bag is also the quality that leaves this facility when we ship our product. What it takes to manufacture a reliable product is consistency and reproducibility on every step. We know where we get our raw material, we know what we need to do to it, and we know how to package it to bring it to the stores so that every bag you open up is the same over and over and over again. Hearthwood employees are really the ones that turn the process into a perfect product. They are the ones that see, touch, smell, and hear the whole process every single day. They do take pride in what they do, and they are very, very good at it to manufacture a quality product right here in rural Missouri. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you appreciate the process a little bit more than you did before, and maybe you understand a few things now that you did not before. If you have any questions or comments, you feel free to visit our website. You'll find phone numbers and email addresses to contact us with positive or suggestive comments about our product. Certainly hope you have a nice and warm winter when you're using our Hearthwood pellets. Thank you very much.